Cash App is in the scroll bar. Let's dive into the video. This would really bring hindsight to when you're, put in your mind that you want to become an adopted parent. Realize that that the state takes it serious and they expect for you to be a great parent. That
what was it, $900? $900 from the state. And now you guys are proposing that we pay 700 and I don't have the number. Let's see, 767.
They provided profit and loss statements, which they had prepared themselves. They provided a cover sheet indicating that they filed taxes in 2020 and 2021, but they did not actually file their tax returns.
She can't go get a job because we're trying to keep this business afloat. So I don't know where we're coming up with these numbers. I submitted those forms to show all that, prove all that.
Caden did not run away. He was kicked out. I have text messages to show that. This is the second child that they've adopted that I've taken in.
Caden is disrespectful, out of control. I have 75 holes in my wall that I'm still trying to fix from him. I have been physically assaulted, mentally abused. My daughters have been mentally abused. Our family needs to be done.
Information does not show that these parties are only capable of earning minimum wage. And the state is providing for this child, even though they have the legal obligation to do it. It would seem that they're underemployed. Our office treats 35 as full-time instead of 40.
Well, I'm working 60 and I don't get paid a dime.
Right.
I'm killing myself to keep our family afloat. I'm sorry, I need to step away.
That's okay. Ms. Bowers is here representing the state. So we're here on a couple of matters. We were here earlier related to child support concerns brought by the state. And then there was a brief discussion on that when we were here last. And so the state is still seeking that. So I'll just, maybe we could start off hearing from Ms. Powers and then go from there.
Thank you, Your Honor. We were here on July 20th and the court set over to today so that the parents could provide additional information to the court. The parents did provide some sealed financial documents along with some declarations. I have reviewed everything that they've provided and did not find it particularly helpful in terms of giving us a better idea of what the financial position is of the parents. They provided profit and loss statements, which they had prepared themselves. They provided a cover sheet indicating that they filed taxes in 2020 and 2021, but they did not actually file their tax returns. So my reading of the information, it looks like they have not completed their 2022 profit and loss statements, but the way it was submitted showed significant profits, although they indicate they hadn't finished including their expenses. After reviewing everything, I would stick with the worksheets and order as I originally proposed. For the mother's income, we imputed her at her average hourly wage earned over the last 3 years of employment security data. That at least gives us a solid base to know what she's capable of earning. So I imputed her at 35 hours per week, $19.35 an hour. The father has no employment security history as he's been self-employed for a significant period of time. I would still ask that we put him in net median income. The parents have 2 other kids living in their home, so I've included a whole family deviation. I'm asking for transfer payment from the father of $486 a month and a transfer payment from the mother of $281 per month.
I have no income. Zero.
Can I respond to what she spoke on?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So the reason I submitted those profit and loss statements, which I do prepare by myself, if you look at year over year from 2021 to 2022, there was a substantial loss of around $140,000. I don't have the exact figure in front of me, but that is the reason I submitted that. We file an extension for our taxes every year, so our taxes won't be done until late September, which is the reason 2022 is not filed. We have to do that because we're an online business and we still have products shipping out throughout the year, so we can't file it by the middle of April. My wife has worked previously back in 2019, around when COVID hit. She started working for the business. The business did a big dive. So she's here helping me. She can't go get a job because we're trying to keep this business afloat. So I don't know where we're coming up with these numbers. I submitted those forms to show all that, prove all that. That's all I can prove is what I've submitted. So I don't.
So thank you. I appreciate that. Let me just ask you, looking at those profit and loss statements that you submitted.
Yes.
So I kind of just need a little bit of explanation looking at those. So there's 3 years. We've got 2020, 2021, 2022. So when I was looking at those, I didn't get into the nitty gritty of any of it really, but when I'm looking at the kind of the net total sales in 2020, it looks like it was 345,000 and total expenses were 308. So profit was 36,000.
Correct.
Okay. And then looking at 2021, total sales were 383,000 and expenses were 334 for a net of 49,000.
Correct.
And then in 2022, total sales were 247,000, expenses were 39,000 with profits of 207,000. So I see what you're saying about as far as a dip in revenue or income or sales, I guess sales is a better term, from 350 higher than that, and then drop down to 245. But then my question, I guess, is that that last figure of total expenses of 2022 were exceptionally low, and the profits were increased dramatically. Because
the expenses haven't been input yet. If you look at if you actually look through this, it shows zeros in the spots that are really critical, like our supplies, our property payment, inventory invoices, all those things that are huge numbers.
Okay.
We haven't been input yet. And I just haven't input them yet because we don't do our taxes until, like I say, another about a month and a half is when I really start preparing everything. So.
Okay, I see that. That helps. Thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
Then did you have any, you heard Ms. Amy Powers mention that she's proposing a whole family deviation, which basically gives credit or a lightening of the load, if you will, for the other two children that are within the home. Do you have any questions on that?
No, I understand how that works.
Okay. All right. Very good. And
I don't know if you guys, the adoption support issue we brought up too is, we were receiving, what was it, $900? $900 from the state. And now you guys are proposing that we pay 700 and I don't have the number. Let's see, 767. So I mean, it's just a huge swing. And
what's happened to the adoption support? What happens? Go ahead. So you stopped receiving it back in end of March, right?
Yeah, when Caden ran away, they stopped it immediately.
Okay, and is that being redirected to another party?
It's out of our hands.
They just said we're stopping it, and that's all the last we heard.
Okay. And when was the adoption finalized?
In 2013
13 years ago.
10.
He was 3 when we adopted him.
13 years ago. Okay. All right. Thank you. Let me touch base with Ms. Jennifer Powers. Do you have any input?
So I seeked out TANF support because Caden did not run away. He was kicked out. I have text messages to show that. This is the second child that they've adopted that I've taken in. Caden didn't have anywhere else to go. I called CPS to see if they could find placement. The only option for Caden at the time and still currently was a group home. He's special needs. He has a lot to learn. He would not succeed in a group home. So we are just trying to do what we think is best for him. And he is in counseling 3 days a week, which costs a lot of money. He also came with just the clothes on his back and nothing else. So we had to immediately buy him school clothes, school supplies, everything else. So I seeked out TANF to help alleviate some of the cost of taking on a child that we did not know we were going to be taking on. As far as the rest of it goes. It's just, just trying to get help with taking care of a child that we did not anticipate having. So we're just doing the best that we can for him. And we, as far as the adoption support goes, I mean, my understanding of it is that it stops when you no longer have the child in your care. And I can't get adoption support because we're not adopting him. We're just guardians. And we'll have him until he's capable of taking care of himself, which will be, after 18, because he'll not graduate high school until he's almost 19. So
Caden's 16 now, is that right?
He's currently 16.
16. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Jennifer Powers. Let me check with Mr. Homer, Ms. Peterson, related to I read something about the consent, that when you signed off on the consent, you didn't see anything related to financial implications. So the petition, I think, was filed by Ms. Jennifer Powers, and she indicated, at least at that time, she wasn't seeking any support, financial support, and that was part of the reason why you entered into the consent. Do I get that right?
Correct.
Okay. And then now the state on its behalf has brought that motion. So I think the consent is still valid, because the party, or the representation from the petitioning party, Ms. Jennifer Powers, was that she wasn't seeking, and she's not, and now it's the state that's seeking, and that doesn't necessarily make it easier or better for you all, but that's at least my understanding of your consent argument, and at least my view of how that's worked out. Any comments on the consent issue?
No, I just don't understand, if the state was paying us adoption support, why isn't the state paying the TANF as well? I mean, it just doesn't make sense in our,
It's basically our family has endured nothing but torture and torment from these adopted boys that we've gone through. Our children are traumatized. I am significantly traumatized, to the point I have PTSD. I have flashbacks. I'm not doing well. I have no income. You guys are putting us into a financial hardship where we're going to have to go on welfare to afford our own children and our own home. This makes no sense to me. Caden is disrespectful, out of control. I have 75 holes in my wall that I'm still trying to fix from him. I have been physically assaulted, mentally abused. My daughters have been mentally abused. Our family needs to be done. We cannot afford to continue supporting this behavior, this dysfunction. It's disgusting. I'm sorry to go off, but I'm just can't handle it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that input. So here, Ms. Amy Powers, you've imputed Ms. Peterson at $19.35 an hour over, and you said 30 hours a week, correct?
35 hours per week. Our office treats 35 as full-time instead of 40.
Well, I'm working 60 and I don't get paid a dime.
Right.
I'm killing myself to keep our family afloat. I'm sorry, I need to step away.
That's okay. That's okay. All right. And then you're imputing the net median income to Mr. Homer, correct?
That is correct.
And your child support worksheets here, that sets it at roughly $5,100 per month. That's a net amount, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then Ms. Amy Powers, with regard to the profit and loss statements, you saw that the net operating profit was, $36,000, $49,000 per year, roughly in those past couple of years. And it's not a really complete information. How does that impact your decision to set it at net versus those maybe reduced figures based on the profit and loss?
Well, I looked at the fact that the total net profit has increased. It increased between 2020 and 2021. I also noted that this business is run out of the party's home. They did provide information of large debts that they're paying, but they did not provide enough information for us to tell what living expenses are being paid as part of the business expenses. I did see information that had been reported with their state medical that showed a higher income, but I didn't have a strong basis to know where that came from, so I did not use that as a basis. But looking at the net profit and loss statements, the income was going up. There's a lot of expenses. Some of those expenses may be part of their living expenses. And so that's why I chose to stick with the net median rather than pick a different number.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask Mr. Homer. Ms. Amy Powers raises that issue of with a self-employment situation, whether and running a business out of the home, there's sometimes a mix of expenses that are cross lines between business and home. When you file your taxes, is that presented in a kind of a clear fashion? 60% is of household expenses are for the family, 40% is to the home. Is that in your past taxes?
It's not that clear. It's a sole proprietor business. So, I mean, it's all under my social security number. It's my credit cards, everything are under my social security number. There's nothing separated. So, I mean, to be honest with you, I really don't know what I make a year. I just know that the last couple of years is that, I've been having to run up credit cards. I've been taking, capital loans. Like my wife said, it's this, any other expenses at this point is just going to drive us into a hardship. And I'm not saying that because I don't want to pay child support. I'm saying that because that's the facts. I mean, it is what it is. So, I mean, I know you guys are looking at a snapshot of incomplete records, but it is what it is. I just look at my two daughters that are, how do we go buy school clothes for them? Do we just go tell my 16-year-old she has to go get a job to buy school clothes now? It's just frustrating. So, yeah, I apologize that, the taxes aren't more complete than they are, but if I had another month and a half to finish this, you would see that it's a net operating loss, not a profit. So
For 2022.
Correct. And 23, we're trending the same numbers as 2022.
Okay. Let me ask Ms. Amy Powers, as far as there's some indication that the taxes are filed in September. Mr. Homer indicates, maybe a 6-week time frame to get those submitted, and that may provide a more accurate picture of the finances. And so I want to get your take on that as far as a potential set over to see that. And I also want to hear from Ms. Jennifer Powers and get her input, because I'm thinking maybe some amount of support now, and then with the opportunity to revisit it when we have better numbers. Ms. Amy Powers.
I would not be opposed to the court changing these child support orders to temporary orders if you want to set a review out. But I would note for the court that the parents have filed their taxes the last 2 years and did not provide those either, even though those have already been filed. And that would have potentially provided some better information. So I would still ask that some sort of order be entered today.
And you're asking for an effective date of when?
July 1st, as the child began receiving TANF as of June 30th.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Jennifer Powers, do you have any comments on that issue?
I mean, I'd like to say that I understand this is difficult for both sides, but I'd like to see that my side of this is also seen by all parties. I had a child show up at my door on March 22nd that needed a place to stay, that did not have a great option through CPS and could not go home. And I had to go out immediately and use money that I did not have and take away from my own children to buy him school clothes, shoes, school supplies, everything, because I asked that all that be given to me and it was not. And this has already happened with a previous child as well, exact same situation where I was not given anything. It's hard for me to sit here and listen to all of this because I live in an 800 square foot house. I don't have a glorious life. We're just trying to do what is right by this child that just needs someone to take him to counseling 3 days a week and get him on the right path. He's now drug free. And he is really trying hard to do what he's supposed to be doing, and he's learning a lot. And, I have to go out and buy him school supplies. I did not choose to adopt him when he was 3. I didn't even choose for him to show up at my doorstep and start living with us, but I'm doing what I feel is right by the child because I don't think that a group home is the right solution for this child. I don't think it's the right solution for any child, don't get me wrong, but he has special needs and is on an IEP through school, and he needs a lot of guidance, and it's not going to happen in a group home where he doesn't have an individual person caring for him and showing him how to do everything. So, you know, it's not that I'm trying to be rude or hurtful or anything else. I'm just trying to do what's right by the kid. And you know, I mean, I think we all know that it costs a lot more than $417 a month to feed a 16-year-old boy that's growing, let alone clothe him and house him and everything else. And that's not including him wanting to play any sports or do anything else, or me driving him to and from counseling 3 days a week. So, you know, I just, you know, ask that my side be seen as well. It's not, I didn't choose this. My family didn't choose this, but we're making the best of it, and we're doing what we can for him.
Can I just say, actually,
Yeah, go ahead.
it was a choice. Caden chose to run away. Caden chose to go to their house because they have told all 3 of the boys that we have adopted that they are welcome at their home anytime, for any reason, under any circumstances. That's part of the problem that has occurred in our home, is whenever we try to set boundaries, guidance, examples, put an end to the drug abuse, the physical abuse, the mental abuse, they escape. And then we're made out to be villains when we're not.
The consequences are they can just run away.
Exactly. And Jennifer Powers, you and your husband, Kyle, I think it's wonderful that you've taken him in, but that was your choice, 100%. That is what I'm going to say on that. Caden is.
All right. Well, I appreciate the input from all parties. Obviously, a super hard, emotionally difficult at best situation. Lots of varying inputs and lots of concerns and heartache and difficulties. So we're here on the issue of maybe the more sterile, but nonetheless still important issue of financial support related to Caden. Here's my take on this is that, you know, one, the adoption support, you know, it's kind of cruel irony that the adoption support's there and then it's gone, and then there's a request for child support. So when I look at the numbers, you know, it's a squishy picture, if you will, as far as finances. We have a profit and loss statement for 2022 that's incomplete. We don't know, you know, a lot of the dollar figures. We'll probably know that soon and have a better idea on that. Obviously, taking a look at tax years 2021 and 22 will help refine, put a finer point on the calculations. We have what we have at this point. TANF started being paid out at the end of June, so I think I need to make a decision today, and it can be reviewed later on once we have a finer picture, or a more acute or greater clarity picture. So as far as the net median income for self-employment for Mr. Homer, I think that's well taken. Self-employment is always very difficult to tease out the numbers and the mixing that's almost inevitably there. There's no indication of, you know, I'm not suggesting any nefarious intent to hide or anything like that. It's just there's a mixing that happens with self-employment, and it's difficult to tease out. What I think is a little more challenging for me is that there's an indication that that Ms. Peterson has been working for the family business and caring for the children, and not to say that dad isn't doing the same thing, but she's working for free basically, and that's what family businesses do. They chip in and make things happen. So I'm not going to impute her. I'm going to put her net income as being subsumed by the income of the father. So it's a joint activity, and that joint effort goes into producing the single income of the net median income of 5109. So that's what I'm going to set the net income at and base the child support on that. That'll be effective July 1. And then once we have, I don't know if it would be proper at this point to set a hearing once the taxes have been filed. If Mr. Homer, Ms. Peterson, if there's a firm date that you feel that you'll be filing that, if there's a date that you need to file it by, then maybe we could set it a week or two after that to review things.
It's mid-October, but I usually like to have it done by the end of September so that we can renew our insurance, because the insurance wants to, the state insurance wants to see what our income is each year. So I usually have it done by the end of September. So I would say October 1 would be the earliest date.
Okay. All right. Ms. Amy Powers?
I'm trying to figure out how to put this into an order. So I want to clarify. You have
Okay.
put the father at net median and you've put the mother at 0. Is that essentially what you've done?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I haven't thought through it all. My thought is this, is that it sounds like for an extended period of time, the family has combined efforts to produce income. And there's not a separate source of income, and nor is there really a viable option to do so because those efforts are needed to keep the business running and up and going. So I don't know if that means that she's set it at 0, or if Mr. Homer set it 2,500, she set it 2,500 or 26, 2,550, 2,550. I'm not exactly sure. It seems if that's the route we go, that seems fair because both parties are expending a lot of energy and time.
What I'm concerned about is 2,500 is about a minimum wage order per parent. And the information does not show that these parties are only capable of earning minimum wage. And the state is providing for this child, even though they have the legal obligation to do it. So I would just ask the court to keep that in mind as you're making the ruling.
Yeah. So let me ask, so is it more kind of just, I'm not sure if it's a kind of a general disagreement with the court order or how to implement the court's order?
I guess a little bit of both.
Okay.
I'm concerned if the court is essentially setting both parents at full-time minimum wage, when that's usually reserved for people who either have a history of earning minimum wage or no employment history. I suppose maybe that's appropriate for the father since we don't have other information, but we do have information for the mother that she's earned more than that. And my argument would be if the business is failing so bad that we're not even bringing in as much as minimum wage, it doesn't make sense to me that we would, it would seem that they're underemployed. Well, the state is bearing that cost. But if the court is going to keep this as their order, I need more direction on what incomes do I put in each party's column on the worksheets and how to ferret that out.
Okay, let me ask you a point of clarification. So if father set at 5,109 per month and mom set it at 0, or on the alternative 2,550 each, that doesn't change the bottom line. Doesn't matter. It's going to go through the same funnel and it's going to have the same dollar amount at the end.
Correct.
As far as support. Okay.
Yeah, it should. If mom's at 0, it would put her at $50 a month. But absent that, it's going to be the same obligation.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So just addressing the well-taken argument related to minimum wage. Self-employment is a different animal. I grew up in a home where my dad was self-employed. There were months and years that were amazing. And I remember one time sitting at the dinner table where we sat down and dad said, well, we're not going to be able to do this. We can't do that. We've got to turn this back in. And things were exceptionally tight. So there's an ebb and flow in the business cycle. And sometimes that's out of a person's control. There may be new competitors on the market. There may be national funding. There's a lot of things that could go into that. And that's kind of the basis of my rationale with family businesses, is that there's this natural roller coaster of income. Sometimes it may be fairly steady, and there has been a steady increase, at least from year over year of 20 to 21, but 22, at least from the preliminary figures, are showing that there's been a dramatic, percentage-wise, a little less than a third of revenue decrease. And usually the costs don't decrease correspondingly. Costs generally are fairly stable, and you can cut, yes. So that's part of my rationale. The other part of my rationale is that even if Ms. Peterson were to go out and get a job, I'm not sure what type of job she would get and how that would affect the income that's being produced through her efforts and labors combined with the father's to produce the income that is coming in. So it may have the impact if she gets a job there, it may be a negative impact on the overall financial picture. That's my thinking. So, I'll set the mother's income at $0, and that'll put it the support at $50 a month, and I'll set the father's at 5109. And I'm not exactly sure where that puts him at. It may be around the 486 level, but may be slightly different. I think it's at 486.
I will rerun the numbers. It'll decrease since we're taking mom's income out of the worksheets. So do you want to set this over 2 weeks for presentation? Are you going to be continuing to do this docket?
My understanding is that I'm kind of filling in.
Okay.
So it's unlikely that I would continue on a regular basis. So we may look at a Friday morning at 8:45. That's my regular presentation docket.
Okay, should we set it then to August 18th, and I will rerun the worksheets and orders and get them out to the parties?
Okay, so that's Friday, the 18th. So what we're talking about, Ms. Amy Powers is suggesting, is that she's going to rework the child support worksheets and the order to reflect the court's order today related to incomes and corresponding child support, and that she would present that to all parties prior to the 18th. And on the 18th, if there's any concerns that what she's produced, if that's contrary or not in accord with what the court's ordered today, then all parties could speak up and share their concerns and say, hey, she got it wrong, or hey, she got it right. How does that work for Mr. Homer and Ms. Peterson?
Sounds fair.
Okay. All right. And then Ms. Jennifer Powers, are you available on the 18th at 8:45?
Give me 1 second.
Sure. And I'm going to double check my schedule just to make sure, because I'm almost always around, but just want to make sure.
Would that be a virtual hearing again?
I missed that. Could you repeat that?
On the 18th, would that be a virtual again?
Yes.
Zoom?
Yes.
Okay. And can you do that on a cell phone?
Yeah, you can dial in with a cell phone. Yep.
Okay, then yes, I can be available on the 18th at 9:30.
It would be at 8:45.
8:45. Okay, got it.
Okay. All right. So Ms. Amy Powers will get those orders out, distributed to the parties, so you can take a look at them prior to the hearing. We'll be here on the 18th. If the parties agree and that you agree that what she's prepared is an accurate reflection of what the court ordered today, you can simply sign off on it. Then it'll be submitted to the court and it'll be signed off. If there's disagreement, certainly we'll be here on the 18th at 8:45 to discuss that.
So if it's agreed, we won't need to meet again on 8:45. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Correct. All right. If are there any final questions or issues at this point? And let me double check to see if there's anything that I may be missing from the clerk's perspective. Good. All right. She says no. So from my vantage point, we have a plan and we have a direction at this point. So that'll conclude the hearing. Thanks everybody for your attention and patience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the second case that I actually still like the judge. I like the judge in one of the cases that I did earlier today, and I like this judge. Now, what I would like to know is Amy Powers and Jennifer Powers, are they related? Like the new foster mom? Because of course the parents are still legally the adopted parents. But is the AG and the new foster mom, are they related? Because why would both of them be on the case? And why would the AGs fight so hard? I've never seen the AG in no case that have done fight so hard against a judge. So very, very, very interesting. Leave it in the comments. This is Antonio with Team Tiggio. Please like, comment, subscribe as we'll be coming to you more videos in the future. And once again, we will see you in the next video.